Welcome back to the Gardening with Joey and Holly radio show. Moments away, Ellen Ecker, Ogden will be with us. First, let's talk about a company called Rescue.
Yeah, so Rescue has a birdseed moth trap. Now, the interesting thing is that there are dormant moth eggs that start to hatch as the weather warms up in early spring, and this is not just outside. This can be in your grain, your flour, your bird seed. If you've been storing bird seed over the winter, ready for the spring, these moths could live in there as well. So it's something to keep in mind, and same thing with your grain. So they have these traps they become pre-assembled in a hard plastic shell. They're a sleek design. They can be tucked away on a shelf or hanging from the provided hang tab. You can find all this at Amazon, participating Ace, True Values, and Do It Best stores. You're just going to go to rescue.com. That's rescue.com, and it's going to have everything you need for those moths that might be coming your way.
Let's go to the hotline, Holly, and bring in our guest for this week.
Ellen Ecker Ogden is a nationally recognized author who provides kitchen garden design tips and recipes through newsletters, books, and design workshops. Her website is ellenogden.com. Welcome to the program, Ellen.
Thank you, Holly.
Well, Ellen,
delighted to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you. Let's start out with this question. What exactly is a kitchen garden compared to like a backyard garden or a side garden? What is the definition of such thing?
Well, it's a good question. It's not a garden that's in your kitchen, but it's a garden that's outside of your kitchen. It's typically smaller than a victory garden, but it's designed to fit near the kitchen door to grow those culinary herbs and delicate greens that a cook uses on a daily basis. And it's a way to grow food that's maybe a little bit more beautiful, to open up the senses to all the flavors and the fragrance. And, food, food is a beautiful, beautiful plant. And sometimes when we grow them in a big garden, we forget that it's nice to take time to really appreciate the form and the color.
So it's not necessarily you only can grow this in the kitchen garden, but there's just more of a tighter guideline in order to get those herbs and those fragrances and even some flowers that will waft into the kitchen through the back door type of thing.
Yes. Well, I've always grown food that I've selected food based to grow. Excuse me. I typically grow food that I can't buy in the grocery store, and so I really seek out hard to find culinary greens and, of course, heirloom vegetables. But I was inspired when I went to cooking school at the Ballymaloe School of Cookery in Ireland, and that's when I was really introduced to the idea of what's called a European potager, which is a more intimate garden where, the design is more beautiful. It combines flowers and food and herbs all together in one place.
That sounds really pretty, and really, I think as a gardener, just being immersed, it almost sounds like in that garden area around you sounds really nice. Now, in your newest book, The New Heirloom Garden, you provide a lot of great info, recipes, etc. For those who don't know, what are heirloom plants?
Well, heirloom seeds are open pollinated, which means that you can grow a plant and let it go to seed, and you can save the seed and grow the same plant again, which you can't really do with hybrid seeds, which a lot of seed catalogs sell these days. And hybrids were really introduced around 1950, and they're supposed to be more disease-resistant, more vigorous. They've been bred by plant breeders. But a lot of the older heirloom varieties, I think, have a lot more flavor. They're kind of more interesting in terms of the types of plants that they grow, and, of course, things like fragrance, when you're talking about wonderful old-fashioned flowers, is really important.
Now, we get this question a lot. New gardeners seem to gravitate towards the hybrid ones because of the ease, but we enjoy the heirloom ones for many of the reasons that you just stated. But why are hybrid plants seem to be so much more difficult to grow or the heirloom plants seem to be much more difficult to grow than the hybrid ones? They're
they're not what do you think? I don't happen to think that they are that much more difficult. I mean, I think some plants maybe are. The heirloom tomatoes are not as disease resistant, but I would much rather plant a tomato with great flavor than worry about the disease resistance. I think that a lot of disease in gardens really has to do with how the gardener treats their plants. Do you have wonderful organic soil? Are you giving the plants enough room to grow? Are you feeding them, good soil? There's just a lot of things that can contribute to a successful garden.
Right. I agree. Definitely take some. I think just it's kind of the art of gardening for sure. Now, just for those who just come in, we were talking with Ellen Ecker Ogden. She's a nationally recognized author. Then the website is ellenogden.com. One thing about heirloom plants, I think a lot of people think about tomatoes when they hear heirloom. I know we grow heirloom leeks. What are some other common heirloom plants that people might not even realize that they're growing already?
Oh, well, that's a great question. Well, in the new Heirloom Garden book, I have theme gardens because I wanted to give suggestions for different types of plants that people could grow. And so each of the designs is set up with a different theme. So, for instance, there's the Arc of Taste Garden, which is based on the slow food endangered species. So there's some wonderful old Italian artichokes, suggestions to grow artichokes or amaranth or some old beans that, maybe are not readily available in a lot of catalogs. But most of the varieties that I recommend in the designs are available in catalogs. It just sometimes takes a little bit more searching for the varieties. So to answer your question, things like the Rubine Brussels sprouts. It's an old-fashioned red Brussels sprout rather than the green Brussels sprout. Or the Merlot lettuce, or the Osaka purple mustard, or a Carabie du Moussain pea, which is an old French variety, which is a lovely has a lovely purple flower to it before it blooms. Before it makes its seed pod.
We've lost a lot of the varieties over the last 100 years, in which if we had today, we would be amazed at the beauty and the taste in which they provide.
Yes, it's fun to go back and look at the old seed catalogs and see which varieties are still being sold. For instance, the Bloomsdale long-standing spinach, that was developed over 200 years ago, and it's still absolutely the best spinach you can grow in your garden. It's a wonderful thick leaf spinach that's good in the spring and also in the fall. And so it's fun to see what people used to grow 100 years ago. Of course, rutabagas and turnips and all these things that we don't really even know what they look like anymore.
Right. What is a helpful tip from your book that would intrigue our listeners?
Well, in my book, The New Heirloom Garden, I actually have it divided into 3 parts. The first part is step-by-step, which really covers basics of designs, because I'm essentially more of a garden designer and a cook than I am a how-to gardener kind of person, but I like to lay out the foundation of how to design the garden, and then how to start seeds and seed selection, and of course seed saving. And then in the middle section of the book, they're designs. So their designs are meant to inspire rather than say this is how you have to do it, but just ideas and suggestions. And then the final part are recipes, because I'm a cook and I love to garden, and I feel that the two go together hand in hand. And so the recipes are set up by plant families, because I think we've sort of forgotten that there are such a thing as plant families. So the sunflower family, for instance, has artichokes and calendula and cardoon and chicory and lettuce. And then there's the brassica family. And, each of these families, the nightshade family, the eggplant and the peppers and the potatoes, it's just nice to remember that these plants that we're growing in our garden do have some common traits.
Well, the recipes look great. The pictures are even more fabulous. If Holly and I could just mimic half of what the picture looks like at the end result of the dish, I think we got it made, because there were some pretty pictures in the back of that book in your recipe section.
It's a beautiful book, isn't it? I know. I give credit to my photographer, Matthew Benson, who did a lovely job with the photography. It's very inspiring.
Okay. So how can our listeners find out more about you and your book and all of your information?
Well, thank you so much. Well, the book is called The New Heirloom Garden, and I have a website, but the book is also available in bookstores everywhere. I'm so thrilled to be talking to you about it. The book is only 3 weeks old today, and so it's very exciting. It's my 5th book, actually. I have 4 other books on kitchen garden designs.
Well, this is a very beautiful book. I would highly recommend hours of reading and entertainment of just looking at the pictures. But there's a lot of ton of great information inside of it. You've done a very well job putting it together.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. When I started it, I actually had no idea what an heirloom garden was myself. So it took a lot of research and learning and really falling in love with a whole new way of looking at my garden.
Well, Ellen, we greatly appreciate the little time that you've given us and our listeners and sharing more information about you and your book with all of us.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.